Okay.
My name is Chuck Bodecker.
All right, Buster Cleveland.
Hello, Buster. Now, tell me how you got involved in aviation.
Well, I've been around an airplane ever since I was 5 years old. My dad took me and my mom at that time to an old grass strip in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
And flew in a little Cessna, or I call it 150, I think. And from that day on, I have been around an airplane somewhere or other ever since I was 5 years old.
So you're from Texas then?
Oh yeah.
And your initial flying, you learned how to fly in Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
But back in the day, first of all, we had a friend of the family that was a pilot, a World War II pilot, and he owned his own airplane, plus he had access to other airplanes. And he'd come and get me just about every weekend and we'd go fly. Also back in those days, I was able to ride my bicycle up to the local airport and hang out.
And what airport was that?
It's Beattyfield, and it's not, there's all houses on it.
All houses?
Yeah. Anyway, I could go up there and hang around and supposedly help them with the airplane, do whatever, you know.
Grass strip?
Yep.
Yep.
And hopefully get to go fly and stuff. The last airplane I did like that with our friend, he had a Stinson Reliant, if you remember it.
Oh, I do. They're still around?
Yeah, great airplane. Anyway, put a new engine in it and a new prop. We went out to here I was a teenager at this time. We went out and did a test hop and flew over to another grass strip airport in Pantego there in outside Arlington. Just went in, got soda pop, left. We came back and picked up a little rain shower, which the prop was throwing oil. So it covered up the windscreen. And it's my first, I guess you might say, blind landing. We came in our field and wasn't worried about it. We crossed, looked out the side window, saw the fence go by, and knew we were over the field, so we landed. That's one early war story.
That's one early war story. Now, what did you make a living flying airplanes, or did you?
No, I didn't. Well, I went to college with the idea of going to pilot training, and my dad got really sick and everything, and I lost my slot to go to pilot training, and we hung around with my mom and took care of stuff like that. But I had entered into the Air Force Reserve with the intent of going to flight school, and so I remained in that and picked up an aircraft maintenance crew chief, F-80 and T-33, and had a little bit of F-86 before they moved them out, and then I finally got on flying status and remained on flying status with the Air Force, reserve and active duty for.
And what did you do in the Air Force? What, crew chief? Or?
No, I was flight engineer.
Flight engineer. Yeah. What kind of aircraft?
Because you had to do everything yourself, because most of our missions were either two-ship or single-ship, and you'd have to figure all this stuff out on your own. So your maturity as a pilot grew exponentially because it was all on your shoulders. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you just start out as a wingman, all you have to do is follow the lead around. And so as a second lieutenant, I was instantly given a tremendous amount of responsibility. The squadron commander said, "Here, go fly it for 2.5 hours and bring it back, and don't damage it." And learning to fly in German weather and Western Europe at the time, because the wall was still up, and all the different languages, and it was just a phenomenal growth as a pilot, as just being a fighter pilot and how to learn how to fly,
First, second lieutenant,
making decisions and all that stuff. The F-15 was an incredible roller coaster ride. I mean, the adrenaline that you had flying the F-15 was just incredible. So it's not like I prefer one or the other. It's both of them had such tremendous maturation as a pilot of learning how to do something. F-15, you learned how to employ it as a weapon system. It wasn't just flying it; it was employing it as a weapon system to defeat the enemy. And the OV-10 was just. So I have a love affair and hate affair with both of them. The OV-10 community was different because it encompassed everybody, whereas the F-15 was, they called it the Ego Jet. That was the nickname they gave the F-15.
Why?
Because the Egos, because at the time I was flying it, that was the #1 jet to fly. The F-16s were just coming online when I flew it. And so it was very interesting because I came into the F-15 community as a captain, whereas I came into the OV-10 as a lieutenant. So when you're a captain, you know a little bit more, and maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe it is. But the opportunities in the F-15 were incredible, just unbelievable, because it was all over the Far East.
Any adventures of note, or is it all pretty much heads down, fly the airplane, and
The F-15,
provide vectors to other people?
the OV-10, you had to invent a lot of things. In other words, we had to create missions for the A-10s and all the other NATO aircraft to do close air support. So we would go fly somewhere to an area, and we would run a typical close air support mission. And you had to be able to either mark it with a smoke or give a grid coordinates, and that they
Now,
could
you had
bomb the grid.
you had an observer with you?
No, we did not. That was the other thing. In the Air Force version of the OV-10 in Europe, it was just me. I was all by myself. And trying to coordinate this, and if the Cobras came in from the Army, and
Mark a target.
all this kind of stuff, it was just, you just had to, there's so much invention. You had to make things up on the fly. And things would go wrong all the time, so you'd have to adapt. And that's probably the best thing the OV-10 taught me, is how to adapt in an aircraft to keep everything going on, to keep the mission moving along. Whereas the F-15 was more of how can I efficiently kill the other airplane before they kill me.
I see. Okay, we're recording again.
All right. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting is talk about some of the missions that we were assigned. Our flight schedule we'd fly about 20 missions a day. Now, four or five would be night missions. The rest would be day missions in support of the grunts. They would either be close air support missions or these TPQ missions that I mentioned before. There's actually a book out called Cantien. Now, Cantien was a little spot on the map right south of the DMZ.
Okay.
But it was during the early parts of our assignment to Vietnam during the early '67. It was a very active area where we flew a lot of TPQ missions up there, where we would do this radar controlled bombing. And this was all along the southern part of the DMZ, all the way from the coast all the way inward to Khe Sanh, when Khe Sanh was being built up. So that was one type of mission that we flew. We also flew a lot of close air support missions for Special Forces.
Okay.
Okay, and we actually kind of dipped into the very northern part of 2 Corps during that time period. But other missions that we flew, these night missions that I referred to, the Route Package 1, which was the farthest south, we would fly those with rockets and bombs, and also into parts of Laos along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And the reason you were carrying rockets was that was a more effective weapon against truck traffic.
Okay.
So it was an interdiction to all of the supply routes coming down from the north. Now, if we went into Route Package 2 or 3 or 4, generally that would be a mission where you carried a single drop tank and 4 racks of bombs, and generally those would be 750-pound bombs. You carry four on each rack, so you carry 16. If they were going deep penetration into the north, like I said, those missions were single aircraft, sometimes a 2 aircraft mission. Those would be flown with 2 drop tanks and either, 12 750-pound bombs, 3 2,000-pound low drag bombs. Occasionally we would carry that load, not very often, or 16 500-pound bombs. Now we carried 2 drop tanks because refueling at night was generally not available. Okay, so you had to go up there and back with.
And it had been meticulously, beautifully restored. It looked like you could get in, turn the key, and fly away, you know. So, City of Fort Worth had no interest in providing a place for it. We never could raise the money. So the Air Force Museum called Pima Museum out in Arizona and say, hey, y'all been wanting a B-36, come get this one out of Fort Worth. And they did.
Now, what do you see the role of the museum in the B-36? Just preserve and protect the memory? Is that
You talk about here at the Fort Worth
Here at Fort
Aviation
Worth
Museum?
Aviation.
Yeah, actually, we're kind of a little island within this museum. We're our own little, have our own little cubby hole that tells the history of post-World War I aviation history in Fort Worth.
okay?
So that includes the history of Convair, General Dynamics, Lockheed plant out here, and all the products that they made, and their role in world events.
Your role then is preserving the history of the aviation activities in the Fort Worth area. Is that correct?
That's it.
I see.
That is it.
How interesting.
It is. It truly is. It's an intriguing story. And it's a story that actually, when you look, built this city from early 1940s when this plant was built. And by the way, this plant, 4,000 feet long, was designed and built to produce B-36.
The General Dynamics plant.
Yes, General Dynamics. Local lore says that it's a B-24 assembly plant. And the reason that happened was that after our planners decided we needed intercontinental bombers, and they made plans to build them, they also made plans to produce manufacturing facilities to build them. And they built two identical plants, one here and one in Tulsa, each one 4,000 feet long, to build B-36s. But before the B-36 was ready for production, President Roosevelt said, hold it, we need to rethink. We don't need small numbers of big airplanes, we need large numbers of small airplanes.
Smaller airplanes, yeah.
So that's what they did. They put the B-36 on hold right at the beginning of World War II and started producing medium bombers in the plant, the B-24 and the B-32.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's how General Dynamics really established its mark in aviation, was the B-24s, and what else did they produce?
B-32s.
B-32s. I've never heard of a
Yeah.
B-32.
Well, they built not many of them, 230 I think it was, and flew them over to Japan. They got them shot up, and not all of them. I mean, they had a good record in the service, but when they got back home, they hauled them out to the junkyard and scrapped them and chopped them up.
But the B-24 had been established as a fairly active bomber in the Air Force. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's how the B-24 was, even though it was produced here, it's established the legacy for the General Dynamics plant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And,
now,
and it was Consolidated Vultee at the time.
okay.
And then after the war, General Dynamics came into it. Then Lockheed.